Joining me now is DPW Director Dan Santos. Dan, we have a lot to talk about. I know recently the town of Yarmouth, or the Board of Selectmen in Yarmouth, approved a water share agreement with the town of Barnstable. And tell me a little bit about this agreement and maybe a little background on why this is necessary.
Sure, I'd love to do that. The town of Yarmouth has, as you mentioned, recently ratified an agreement that we had put forth to them about a month or so ago to have an interconnection with their water system. And the reason we're doing that is, with the last year, we've been doing some additional sampling in our Hyannis water system at the urging of the Environmental Protection Agency. It's some sampling that we have to do. And we're looking for what they call emerging contaminants. And these are chemicals that can be found in some water supplies that aren't regulated yet, so it's not things that we're testing for regularly and we have to make sure they're not in the water. So it's part of their program of finding contamination that could be something they want to regulate down the road. So across the country they've done these tests, and on the Cape in our system we found some of these contaminants. And they come from very everyday things. Most of them are from cleaning products and things that are coatings that are used on cookware and on clothing to make them fire retardant, things like that. But it turns out they persist in the environment, so they're in our water system, and it looks like some of them could possibly be health hazards, and that's why they're looking at them. So when we found out that we had them in there working with the Department of Environmental Protection for the state, and our local officials, we decided that we would shut down the wells that had these in them. Even though they're not required to do that, we felt out of really the utmost, being conservative, that we would close them down and figure out what the problem was and how to deal with it, and not have those in our water system. Even though we didn't have to do that, we're just being cautious. And so when we shut down 4 of our 10 working wells, I mean that's possibly a problem, particularly in the summer when we have most of our water consumption. In the winter, it's not a problem at all to have those wells down, but in the summer, we're very close to not being able to have enough water so that we wouldn't have to have any restrictions. And we really don't want to have to put water restrictions in place if we don't have to. So the 2 things we did were, one was rent a treatment system for 2 of the wells up in the Mary Dunn well field. And we're working with the Barnstable County on that project because it looks like the source of that contamination is the old firefighter training academy off Mary Dunn Road. So we're working with the county to try to get that system in place, get that cleaned up. And then the other aspect was, well, how do we provide enough water or make sure we don't run low? And so interconnection makes sense. And we have a number of water systems around us. There's the Barnstable Fire District Water Department, and then COM as a water system, and then Yarmouth. And the reason we selected Yarmouth was it was the closest physically to our system, and it was the most compatible engineering-wise and technical-wise. So we set out to look at that and see if that would indeed work. And then once we did that, we approached Yarmouth and just asked them, given the situation, would they be willing to interconnect with us and have us purchase water from them. They have actually a very robust and a large water system and have a lot of capacity, so this wouldn't be a problem for them to provide the amount of water we were looking at having to borrow or purchase, rather. And so we looked at the technical issues, the legal issues, made a proposal to them. They got their consultants involved, make sure it was okay, and got back to us and said, yeah, they'd be able and willing to help us out, neighboring community.
It's nice when you have that neighboring community who's willing to help out. Tell me a little bit, if you can, about the process now. What do we have to do at this point? The agreement has been approved, and there are some things that need to take place to connect that water system. How long will that take, and is that a costly effort?
There's a couple of remaining issues. One is a legal issue, which is minor, and it relates to the fact that to connect these water systems, there has to be a pipe that goes from one to the other. And because this is a temporary connection, we're going to do it overland, so we're not going to bury it. And if you've been around any of our water projects, you know that sometimes we put temporary water lines in, and you'll see them. They're pipes that run along the sidewalk, and that's taken the place of what's underground. But to do this, is private property involved. And actually, fortunately, there's only 2 private property owners, and it's about 1,000 feet between the 2 systems. So basically, we have a hydrant that you'd see, a fire hydrant, what people call it, which is a valve, on our side and at our water plant over off behind the water department on Yarmouth Road. And then off Camp Street, there's a development called Mill Pond Village, and they'll have a hydrant there. And basically, there'll be a pipe over the ground that will connect those 2. So it's a pretty basic connection, and we have to get an agreement with those owners of those properties, which we have, that would allow us to cross their property legally. And they've been very willing to do that. One of them has a lot of trustees, so it's just taking time to get all the signatures, but I don't anticipate any problem with that. So that's the legal part, and the technical part is actually doing the physical connection, which we've already done the setup on our side. We've done some valving and some pipe changes, and you mentioned the cost. It's probably about $100,000 worth of work for this whole effort, physical work, and you know, we have funds in it's an enterprise account, the water system, so we have some reserve funds in there so that we're able to do this, and we don't have to request money to do that. And it's pretty basic, you know, engineering-wise. And once that legal part is complete and the signatures are in, it would take just a day or 2 really to get this work done. So I anticipate, and things have gone very well, that by next week we'll have an interconnection and we'll be able to have the shared water. You know, this also brings to mind what in the future do we want to have interconnections, and should we have more permanent? So we're going to be pursuing that, having an underground, more permanent connection with Yarmouth and the other water districts, so that if we need water or if they need water for whatever reason in the future, we can kind of reverse the valves and water goes there. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because water is really a precious commodity, and want to make sure that the users of all of our systems have plenty of safe drinking water to use. And that's really what this is all about, is making sure that the system is safe and it has the adequate pressure and capacity for the way people normally use their water, for drinking purposes, cooking, watering their lawns, filling their pools, all those things that people do with their water. We want to make sure they can continue, and right now they can't. So this.
And talking about safety, you know, I have to say it's so reassuring as a resident to know that even though there was, you know, you didn't have to take these steps, that the town decided to go ahead and be proactive and take care of it, even though, you know, really that's not a regulated chemical at this point.
Yeah, we just see no other way. I mean, to make sure people are, you know, the users of our system, which are commercial businesses and some industrial uses and residents, you know, all, they can be assured that we're looking after their best interests, and safety is the key, and we'll never provide knowingly water that's either unsafe or doesn't meet standards. Even if in this case it's kind of questionable whether we need to do anything about it, we're gonna do it. We're gonna take that extra step.
Well, great. Thank you so much for stopping by and updating us on this situation. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks
Dan
for having me.
Santos is the Department of Public Works, the Director of the Department of Public Works. For Channel 18, I'm Sarah Mantle.